Hey guys, how you doing? How's everything going? Just testing the audio levels here before I start. I think it looks good. Don't want it too
Hey
loud.
guys,
How you doing? How's
yeah.
everything going? Just testing the audio levels here before I. All right, that looks good. All right, so yeah, I want to do a review of this album, Moving Waves. It was actually the upside down first CD I ever bought, and the filter is blogging it out, but I have it in the background so you guys can see the cover. Moving waves, the wind has left you, and you are still in commotion. So, a little story behind this. My aunt was staying with us, and this was when I was 6 years old. And I think she had just come back from living in Florida, and she had all her records with her. And I remember I was taking a nap in my room, and she put this album on, and I heard the yodel. As soon as I heard the yodeling in the first song, Hocus Pocus, yada yada do yada do yada do yada do yada do yada do bum bum can't hit that note like I used to. But I remember I heard that, and my eyes like shot up, and I ran downstairs. And I was like, "What is this? What? This is the most amazing album I've ever heard. What is this? Or the most amazing song I've ever heard." And up until that point, my favorite song was "Mr. Roboto" by Styx, and also um, got into that. Well, my aunt made a mixtape with that song, but the reason I got into that song was because I remember seeing the video on MTV, and this is like I was probably like 3 years old. It was like 1983, and I remember thinking the robots were so cool because I was into Star Wars and all that stuff. I was a 3 year old boy, and Star Wars was still, Return of the Jedi had just come out, and so it was really popular. And so I saw all those robots, and I was like, ah. So that was my favorite song. I remember every time it would come on the radio, I would dance to it. My aunt made a mixtape that had that song and a bunch of others. But this was when I was 6. That was the first time I heard that first song. Um, and she did make another mixtape that had that song on it, a bunch of other great songs that introduced me to other bands as well. But this was kind of my introduction to, I guess, Mr. Roboto is technically prog because Styx is a prog rock band, although it was kind of their 80s pop phase. But that was a concept album. Kilroy was here. But anyway, this isn't about Styx. This is about Moving Waves. So I just remember hearing that and thinking it was the best song in the world. It was like, it was so cool. It was so heavy. It was so crazy. There's a flute part. There's a crazy whistling part, the yodeling, the screaming. It was just, I loved it. And when I would turn 9, we had a store, a CD store open here. It was a mom and pop CD store. So we're talking like 1990, maybe 19, 1989, 19. Yeah, it was probably 89 actually. 89 or 90, 1990 was one of those years. I was 9 years old, and yeah, it must have been 1989. And I remember going to the store, and this CD had just been released on CD format because the album originally came out in 1972, but it just came out on CD. This is the same CD I bought. I wish I still kept the price tag. I think I took the price tag off. But it's the same one that I bought, and you can kind of see it. Yeah, there's the back of it here, the track listing, and it was actually the first time I listened to the whole album, not just the first song, because I'd listened to the first song hundreds of times by that point. And yeah, it was really cool. It was the rest of the album was not quite what I was expecting. I remember it's the first song is like a real hard rock, like in your face song. It's like early heavy metal type stuff, 1972 heavy metal. But then it goes into this beautiful classical guitar piece called Le Clochard. 2-minute song. Jan Ackerman is the guitar player on this. There's Van Leer. He's the keyboardist and the flutist and the singer. But Jan Ackerman, killer guitar player. In fact, on Hocus Pocus, you can hear his solos he's like shredding like crazy. Like, before, this was like when shredding was still a new thing. It wasn't really big in 1972, but he was like one of the pioneers of like just really shredding things up on guitar. And but then he could also play classical guitar excellently, and that was Le Clochard. But it's kind of a very soft piece. It's got some keyboard behind it, some string, I guess, samplers or whatever they had back then. I guess it was it a Mellotron? Must have been a Mellotron. It didn't quite sound like your typical Mellotron. It had like an interesting sound though. Yeah, it was just a very soft, relaxing piece. And I remember the first time I heard it, I was kind of disappointed because I was expecting the whole album to be, this crazy hard rock, Hocus Pocus type thing. But it wasn't. It was nice, but I was 9 years old. I was a 9-year-old boy. I wanted to rock hard. And, but I remember, because I had my own like dance to the Hocus Pocus song. I would jump around and stuff. It would always energize me. And I just remember just like doing like my own this was the sad part. This is the sad part of the album, and this is the happy part. This is the crazy part. Had my own little. I was a dumb kid, but it was fun. I love music. So yeah, and it continues in that vein in the third track, Janice. Janice is more of a flute piece, and it's do 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 do. It's got this really nice melody, kind of jazzy. There's like this little jazz guitar thing behind it. It picks up a little bit from Le Clochard, but it's still a very soft song. Now, keep in mind, this was kind of like the first prog rock album I ever listened to. So you can compare it to like something like King Crimson's In the Court of the Crimson Key, which came out 1969, 3 years before this, which had a very hard rocking first track, and then it goes into these really soft tracks later on. And that, I think it's kind of following that model, because you could tell Focus, they were big on prog rock, because this is one of the best. I consider it one of the best prog rock albums ever released, even though it's not as well known as some of the others. And also Thijs Van Leer, he's a great flute player, probably inspired by Ian Anderson. In fact, I think on their first album they had a song called House of the King, which is very very Tully, very Tull-like. It just screams Tull to me. The way it's kind of get that medieval kind of thing, but kind of a little bluesy thing behind it. Really cool track. I think it was used for actually a British TV show. I forget the name of it, but yeah, that was kind of their first kind of minor hit. Hocus Pocus overshot it eventually, but that first album had that was a little bit of a hit for them. And Janice is more of a flute thing, but it's definitely not Tull-like. It's more classical, a little jazzy, and beautiful, a beautiful piece. And, I've come to appreciate, of course, as the older I got, the more I appreciate this album. You got to keep in mind, before Spotify, before Apple Music, before all these streaming things where you could just basically listen to an entire musician's catalog in one go without having to buy anything, you had to buy CDs, or you had to buy records even before this. And I owned a few records, but I was kind of young for record ownership. CD era was really my era when I was getting music, and I wish you could see it though. But these were CDs. They had plastic cases. They had these little inlay card things. I remember reading this. I read this a bunch of times. There's a whole thing on the history of the band, and in addition to the track listing, it was like you really like. And I would just like, back then I would actually sit and listen, or actually I would dance around and listen and jump around whenever I got into it. and it was something that, it wasn't just background music to me, because you bought an album when you spent your hard-earned. And when I was 9 years old, I think this was $15. It wasn't cheap, because CDs were kind of new. They were kind of expensive back then. So it was like it was an investment. So you wanted to get your money's worth. So I listened to this. Keep in mind, it was my first CD. So I listened to this hundreds of times. I listened to this album, even though at first I was a little disappointed. Like not every track is crazy metal, prog metal, or whatever you want to call it. I didn't know what progressive rock was back then, but it wasn't as hard rock as the first one. Like I really started to appreciate these albums. So those first 20 or so CDs that I owned, I know those albums like the back of my hand because I listened to them so much. We kind of lost that in recent years. We kind of because now music is so easy to get. It's there's so much out there. There's so much available. You don't have to buy a CD anymore. You just put on a playlist, or on Apple Music or Spotify or Pandora, or having it pick the songs for you. We did have radio back then. Radio DJs would play their stuff, and I remember when I was a kid trying to tape my favorite songs, like record it off the radio, make a tape off of stuff that was taped off of radio. But when CDs came out, it was you could make much better quality mixtapes because the CD quality was so much better. I made many a mixtape that had music from this album on this back in the early 90s. It was great. So moving on, the fourth track, Moving Waves. This is the title track. This is the only track that has lyrics. I was singing it earlier. Moving waves, the wind has left you, and you are still in commotion. Beautiful song. Lots of piano. The piano is kind of doing this arpeggio thing. Makes it kind of sound like waves moving back and forth. I love this album. Yeah, it's a beautiful song. Now Focus 2 is the fifth track. And now we're starting to get into, things are starting to get hyped up again. We had 3 tracks that were relatively soft and calm. But Focus 2, things start to pick up a bit. It's a very, but it's I guess it can't make up its mind where it wants to be. And that's not a bad thing, because the mood changes a lot. It's a lot of mood changing, sudden mood changing. It goes from like soft sections to fast sections to soft. And lots of time signature changes. The guitar sounds amazing. There's like these really cool moments in there. And this was more in the vein of like Hocus Pocus. I was like, all right, now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting some energy into this. And I really liked this track when I first started it. Still love it. It's kind of a prelude to the one that's going to come, because this album has a side-long epic. And for those of you who don't know progressive rock, that was a popular thing for bands to do, is to make a song that filled the entire side of an album. So the last track is 23 minutes and 4 seconds long. It's called Eruption. And if you can see this here, you cannot, because my filter is annoying and bad. Yeah. If you could see there's so many different, you know what? I'm gonna do something different here. I'm going to open up a browser and just show you that way, so that you can see. Or you know what? Actually, you know what I can do? No, actually, that won't look as good. See if it has the rear of the album here. All right, it looks a little. Yeah, this is a little bit more like what I have, but yeah, there we go. All right, I'm gonna share this screen with you guys. not that one. Gotta change this here to, here we go. All right. So I'm gonna turn this off. Why is this so small? Bear with me, guys, because I'm still new at this whole streaming thing. So I'm gonna open this in a new tab here. All right, you guys see it now. So yeah, this is the track listing here. Now, if you notice Eruption, look at all this. I remember seeing this first. I was like, what the heck is this? Look at all these tracks, all these sections. And I remember CDs were a new thing at that time. And they had, it was the first, like, I was used to tapes where you had to kind of fast forward and rewind and guess where the next song's going to be. Because, you know, those old tape players, they weren't smart. They couldn't stop in between songs. Like, you had to, like, judge based on, you got really good at knowing how thick the tape was and how much time that represented. And it was definitely... it was definitely difficult, and records were a little easier because you could move the needle to like that, the lines in between each song. So it was a little easier to tell, unless the songs all bled into each other, like Moody Blues or Pink Floyd or, you know, a lot of those prog bands actually. But even then, it was still it was easier to know where to start the song. But with CDs, you had tracks, and you can actually skip to the next track, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I was wondering if all of these were separate tracks. If you notice, they're labeled with A, B, C, you know, D, all these sections. And it shows you the time. So you could kind of judge where it was based on the time, but you couldn't actually skip to each of these sections, which was a good thing because the song was, you know, it was one continuous song. You didn't want to just hear like a little snippet of the song that just started and cut off very, you know, uncleanly. So it was one continuous song that had multiple movements, which is what I eventually learned they were called, although when I was 9 years old I didn't know. But yeah, it's based, I didn't know what this was about. Orpheus, Answer, Pupilla, Pupilla, I don't know. The bridge, if you notice, it goes Orpheus, Answer, and then Pupilla. So Orpheus, which I didn't know at the time, but it's from an ancient Greek story, and they're not Greek; they're from Holland, actually. This band, but this is based on an ancient Greek story of Orpheus, who was, I think he was a musician. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I think he was he had a woman he was in love with named Eurydice, or her name's right here. He goes, I think, into the underworld to rescue her from death or something. I don't remember the details I probably should have read up on it before I jump. I did read it a long time ago, so I have a general idea of what it's about, but I read it when I was a kid, and it's been a while. So I should have read it before I started this stream, but you guys can correct me if you see this. But yeah, Orpheus. So I think Orpheus is making a call. He's getting an answer. He's responding, I guess, to the spirits. I'm not sure what Pupilla represents. It'd be a good thing to look up. Let's see. I'm going to look it up right now. So Orpheus and Pupilla. Let's see. Yeah, in Greek mythology, Orpheus was a bard. Yeah, I was right. A legendary musician and prophet. He was also a renowned poet, and according to legend, traveled with Jason and the Argonauts in search of the Golden Fleece, and descended into the underworld to recover his lost wife Eurydice. So I don't know if it mentions anything about Pupilla or anything. Let's see if it says anything about that. Pupilla. No, I don't know. I assume it has something to do with the story, but I'm not sure. So, but Yeah, it was cool. It really intrigued me. I definitely was intrigued by this story. And I was into Greek mythology already as a kid back then, but I hadn't read the Orpheus story yet. So I definitely read up on it after I heard this song. Now, Orpheus is a very soft section. It uses a lot of like, it was very popular at the time, especially in prog rock music, although this was the first time I had heard it. Where Jan Ackerman would take kind of, I guess they would use a volume pedal to give it that kind of throbbing in and out sound. Some people are able to, coordinate their hands so that they can adjust the volume knob on the guitar itself. But he might have been doing that. I wouldn't be surprised if he did that, or if he used a volume pedal. I'm not sure. I'm sure volume pedals were around back then, but not everyone had them. So yeah, it was kind of it's kind of a soft. It kind of almost sounds like someone speaking. I probably should just listen to the album with you guys, although I'm always worried about copyright strikes and that. So, but definitely listen to it. And the Answers is a it's more of kind of a jazzy, upbeat song. And then it goes back into the Orpheus. It's like that. It doesn't sound like, it sounds like a guitar, but I'm trying to emulate it as best I can. So then it does the Answer again, and then it goes into this weird pupilla section, which is kind of very atmospheric, and there's like a cool kind of David Gilmour-y guitar solo. Although, again, I hadn't really listened to Pink Floyd yet. I was 9 years old, so I didn't know David Gilmour sound. But if I had to compare it to someone, I would have compared David Gilmour to him. Although I think Jan Ackerman's a better guitar player, to be honest. Because he can do like kind of slow, feely stuff like Gilmour does, but also some really fast, aggressive shredding as well, which I don't think Gilmour can do. He was definitely an underrated guitar player at that time. Actually, no, that's Tommy that I'm describing. I'm kind of getting them confused. There's Pupilla and there's Tommy, which are two different sections of the song that are right next to each other. I get them confused. Tommy, I don't know. I'm guessing it was named after. I'm gonna look that up. So Focus Moving Waves. Let's see here. Yeah, so this, I wonder if they talk about what the name Tommy is, if it's a reference to the Who's Tommy, or if it's just something else. I'm gonna actually, I'm gonna listen to it a little bit of it right now. So let's do. I don't know if it'll let me, because I don't know if I'm logged in right now, but let's see here. Focus Moving Waves. Yeah, here we go. So Eruption, here we go. Yeah, that's what I was talking about, the Orpheus section. So this is the Orpheus section. This is just a preview. All right, because I'm not signed in. I'm not signed in here, so I can't even play the whole thing. Can I sign in? It's a good thing you can't see my password, so I'm going to just sign in real quick and see if I can play the whole song. And of course, I got to do the two-factor, whatever the hell it is. Oh shoot! It just did it, and then it. Try it again. Okay. All right. Yeah, you can trust this. Okay. Trust but verify. Still giving me just the preview though. All right. Now this is the full song. No, it's not. All right. So I guess I can't play the whole thing, unfortunately. All right. But yeah, I think Tommy was that. Tom Barledge wrote that, and he wasn't actually in the band. But you know what? YouTube, of course. Why don't I just go to YouTube? YouTube has the whole thing. All right. Let's see here. All right, here we go. Focus. Yeah. So that's the Orpheus section. This is the answer section. It goes in and out of this. And then it goes back to Orpheus. So cool, Ed. There, the drummer. Yeah. Cyril Habermans, I think was it. Or is it Pierre van der Linden? One of them is the drummer. I think it was Cyril Habermans. They had these really cool drum solos. And I remember when I was a kid, we would go on these whitewater rafting trips with Boy Scouts. And it would always remind me of this song because you'd have the calm sections like this. Yeah, this is Pupilla. With the kind of the David Gilmour guitar solo coming in here. Here. I think this is the Tommy part actually. I think the yeah, because if you notice, Pupilla's only 1 minute long, so this is the Tommy section. So Pupilla would be this section here. But when it goes into that, yeah. So yeah, I had this all figured out when I was a kid. I liked this album so much. Kind of goes back into the Pupilla section again. See, Pupilla again. This is the Pupilla. But watch, it's going to go back into answer again. Right about now. The answer section. The answer section is always heavier. And then it goes into this bridge section, which is much more hard rocking section. It's a really cool technical part. Watch this part. And then it gets into this really cool jam here. This jam goes on for like 5 minutes, but eventually you get to nice little organ solo. They just jam out for a while. And then he goes into this. This is the break, I think. It's a little reference to Hocus Pocus, the Hocus Pocus riff. this is Eurydice. This is his wife. So he comes to, I think in the story he goes in to get his wife out of the underworld. So this is him finally meeting up with his wife. So I guess all this crossing the bridge and everything into the underworld, and that's him journeying into the underworld. He's now made it to his wife now. This is her song. And then it goes into Dayglow. Nice little, listen to this. There's a Gregorian chant in here. I think this is Dayglow. I probably should just listen to the whole thing. But yeah, it's amazing. It builds up to this really cool part here. And then there's this long drum solo. Whenever I was doing the whitewater rafting, I remember thinking like, this is the part when we're going over the rocks. So yeah, this is the endless road, I think. And then again, it goes back into after. Oops. This is the intro to Answer. Power up here, then into Orpheus again. Last Orpheus section. You hear that volume pedal? It's almost like a wah-wah effect. Just a little harmony there. Final section, Eurydice. I mean, I could just turn. I might as well just do reaction videos. Just listening to this music is great. There's the flute again. Most reaction videos, obviously, it's your first time hearing the album. I've probably heard this album more than any other album. So I don't know if it would work as a reaction channel, but it's so much easier to talk about it when you can actually hear it. That's the end. That's how it ends. Awesome. Yeah, so that's Eruption. Takes you really on a journey. I remember those last drum hits. I was like, it's like those are the last bit. Like you're in the calm section of the rapids, and then you hit the last bit with the rocks, bumping you along the way. And I would always think of this song whenever I would do whitewater rafting when I was a kid. But yeah, it was cool. And I remember too. Keep in mind, this was my first CD. Not too long after, I think my dad bought a car that had a CD player, and that was a big thing back then. But it wasn't the type that you put the CD directly in the dashboard. It was like, it was in the trunk, and it was basically a 10 CD shuffler. You would put 10 CDs in there, and you could just play all the CDs in order. You could just play one CD, or you could shuffle the tracks within one CD, or you could shuffle all the tracks on all the CDs in there. And I remember when me and my sisters and my parents would go on trips, I'd put this CD in, and they would hate it when it would land on Eruptions, because that would mean I would get 23 minutes, because we'd each get 2 CDs. We had 2 sisters, my 2 parents. We'd each get to pick 2 CDs. So, of course, I would pick this one and maybe Thick as a Brick. Later on, I got into Jethro Tull. Thick as a Brick. I think the original issue of the CD, which I had, was just one track. Now it was split into 2 tracks for each side, but the original issue was just one continuous 45-minute track. So anytime it would land on that, it would play the whole thing, and my sister would be waiting for their song to come on. They'd have to listen to my song for 45 minutes. The same with this, and this one was in there a lot, because this was my first CD, and it was my favorite CD for a long time. Still is to some extent. There's always that first favorite album or whatever you have as a kid, like it never really leaves you. I always go back to this one. So yeah, whenever it would land on Eruption, they'd have to listen to the whole thing before they could get to any of their songs. So yeah, that's my review of Moving Waves. 10 out of 10 album to me. One of my favorites, if not my favorite. That's why I wanted to do a review of this one first. Just because it had such a huge impact on me. After I got into this album, shortly after I got into the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and Yes and Genesis and King Crimson and Renaissance and Jethro Tull and ELP. I mean, I went down the whole prog rabbit hole, like, not too long after getting into this. Like, that was basically my teenage years, while my friends were listening to, like, Green Day and Pearl Jam and Nirvana and whatever, no effects, and while they were listening to that, I was listening to this stuff. I wanted to start a prog band. I had this whole Drakis epic. It was going to be like a 20-minute epic like this was, but about a dragon and stuff. We tried to get a band to do it, and when I was in high school, but it was too difficult. It was like I couldn't play half of it. The band was like getting frustrated with all the different sections I had in mind, so we kind of scrapped it. It wasn't until like 25 years later that I finally finished it, although it turned out much different than I had originally planned. Much better, I think, than I originally planned. So if you want to check that album out, it's called Drakis. You can check out my new EP too. Just search James Murray. The new EP is called Shells. Or you could check out Drakis, my album. So there's my little shameless plug in there if you want to check out my music. But yeah, this one, I'm going to try to do these reviews a little regularly, just to get some traffic on the channel and communicate with other fans of prog and music that I like. I might do other types of reviews, not just music. I might do movies and game reviews, or just talk about anything. I don't know. I don't want to limit myself to just one thing, but let me know what you guys would like to see more of. If you want, I could do reactions. I'm just worried about, playing music, getting copyright strikes, because I know that happens to a lot of people that do reactions, but I know it's a lot better when you can hear the music. I don't think I'll get a copyright strike for this, because I think Focus, they're pretty cool, and I think they would appreciate the exposure. I think they're still playing live. Thij Van Leer's still out there. They have a bunch of other great albums, although this is the one I remember the most. But they're all really good albums, and so you could check them out next time they come around live. I think they're still around. I don't know. I actually never saw them live. I should do that at some point, but before it's too late, because they're getting old. But I don't think Jan Ackerman's in the band anymore. I think it's just Thij Van Leer and some new guys, but still worth checking out. Anyway, yeah, I guess I can end it here. How do I end this? How do I turn this thing off? Again, this is my first time trying Rumble Studio. All right, we'll end it right here.